Responsibility and Professor Emeritus of Political Science, Seton Hall University, South Orange. He's one of the several Seton Hall faculty members who laid down the foundations for the School of Diplomacy and International Relations. Dr. Manley is an active member of our church. Dr. Yamba served as president of Essex County College, Newark, for over 35 years. Now President Emeritus, he's known for his extensive leadership that defines the college and continues to be an unrelenting advocate for the power and promise of education. This annual Yamba Manley lecture is consistent in part with our church's vision to being a prominent light in our community through acts of service and advocacy in Christ's name, and fostering a passion for faith in action so that individuals are empowered to give back to the world. Toward a just society, the role of higher education in seeking to achieve this goal is our topic for this afternoon. We hope you will find the discussion stimulating and meaningful. Good afternoon. It is with great joy that I welcome you on behalf of the elders and the deacons and the entire membership here at First Pres and Trinity Church of South Orange, which is a very wonderfully situated Protestant congregation in this South Orange village. And we've been here for many years, and such a long relationship with our community, as well as this idea of what it means to be a just community is what we strive to be here at First Pres and Trinity. And so when we recognize these two great men of our community, it is consistent, as has been said, with our vision of reaching out into the community and to be an inspiration and a light in the community, especially at this time. So as we join together in this occasion, let me just offer this brief prayer. Holy and righteous God, lover of all humanity, we invite you to be with us today. We invite that spirit of yours that brings about justice and peace, that spirit of love, that spirit that walks with those who are lowly, that spirit that unburdens by bringing assistance and light. We thank you that you've given us these great examples in our community of servanthood. And it is our greatest joy to stand with them and to honor them. And then, oh God, to just shift into our places of action, listening to the stories of our panelists today, bringing hope for the future through education. So as we open our ears to hear these words today, just keep us mindful that in hearing is also the command of doing. So help us to be those who not only hear, but then go out and do as we lift up those around us. We give you thanks, O God, Creator. Amen. Now everyone has a program, so I'm going to trust that as I have educators that are meeting, that we have those who are really well read, and they're going to pull out their programs, and they're going to read the bios, and so I don't have to tell you much more about Dr. Juan, but I will say this. I said, tell me, what are you passionate about? What are you passionate about? Because passion is what brings us to the moment. Passion is what takes us into the next moments.
and he's passionate about the future. Dr. Juan said that there's one thing he wants you to know about him is that he is a future-inspired leader, one who wants to help us know how we, not just he, but how we can join together in creating that future that is right and just for not just some, but for many. As I said, his bio is there, impressive, and yet listening to his passion, I believe, is what's going to be the most impressive as he leads us moderating this afternoon. We thank you, Dr. Juan.
It's a great delight and honor to introduce Dr. Margaret Evans. She has served as president of Bloomfield College since June 1st, 2019. Dr. Evans is a role model, a trailblazer. She came to New Jersey from San Antonio, Texas, where she had served as provost and vice president for academic affairs at Our Lady of the Lake University. Before that, associate dean and department chair at the University of Texas, San Antonio. Her PhD is counselor education and supervision from the University of Alabama. Her 2 master's degrees were in education and in rehabilitation counseling. And I always love to know what was the major that started this journey, and it was psychology from the University of Alabama. Her awards and honors, as you can read, are many. She is past president, for example, of the American Counseling Association, past president of the Association for Creativity and Counseling. She received many awards, just a few here I'll mention is the NAACP President's Award, awarded Education Excellence in Education, New Jersey Legislative Caucus Foundation's Black Excellence Award, and the Yellow Rose of Texas Lifetime Educator Award. And I had the pleasure of watching her installation ceremony from afar. It was such an inspiring celebration of warmth, joyful combination of creative arts, story, family, friendship, and community building. So we greatly look forward, Dr. Evans, to your perspectives on justice and higher education. Welcome, thank you.
The first thing is, I would like to say that if I was actually, this is my classroom, I'm going to be all up front. It's just easier when you're having these kind of conversations to be able to kind of eyeball you. I think in my bio was mentioned that I am the first woman. Maybe better if I hold it this way?
Yeah,
Okay, awesome. You know, when we're looking at coming in and talking about what I wanted to share with you today, just looking at the theme, it kind of resonates with who I am and how I've gotten to this point as the first female and the first person of color. There are not many people that are college presidents or university presidents that look like me. You know, she mentioned the various degrees that I have. I graduated from high school in Washington, D.C. My stepfather was in the Air Force, but my grandparents lived in Alabama, and Alabama was considered the home base. I grew up during a time of civil rights. Again, trying to maybe figure out where I am age-wise, so it was in the 60s and 70s, and it was during that time of Martin Luther King, actually. And my grandmother always told me, baby, get your lesson, get your education, and once you get your education, no one can ever take that away from you. They can take the clothes off your back, they can take your house or your car, but once your mind is educated and you're free, no one can ever take that from you. So, the importance of education was instilled in us from the very beginning. She also told us that, you know, when we were sick or whatever and didn't want to go to school, that wasn't an option. Unless we were ready to go to the hospital and die, we were getting up and we were going to school every day. Also, my grandmother's home was a community home as well, where everyone came to just be. She would buy baseballs, basketballs, or whatever for us to be out in the yard to play, and the neighborhood kids always came. She took care of foster kids as well. I was talking to Dr. Rios earlier, and that was important to her to give back to the community. She took care of veterans that had been or experiencing mental health issues. So again, that kind of, I think, fostered my social work, counseling background. I saw it every day in how we lived our lives. It goes back to that Bible verse in Luke when it says, much is given, much is required. That's how I was raised and that was expected of me. When I graduated at 16 from high school, I was going to go off to college to be a real doctor, okay? And be a real doctor meaning biology and chemistry, but organic chemistry wasn't my friend. I was actually in the humanities honors program and not a STEMS program, and as a result of that, I struggled. And I wasn't used to struggling. I was used to my verbal skills and my charm getting by, and that didn't do it with organic chemistry. and back then, we were on quarter systems, and I actually I just found this out. The Rios and I, this is how small the world is, actually went to the same undergraduate school. Can you believe that? In Alabama. And he was our New Jersey. But we did. I didn't finish there. I ended up going to the University of Alabama. But because of the reason why how your life can pivot, and it goes back to Justice Society here, I was going to be a student missionary. And I was actually going to go off to do English as a second language. And I was going to do it in Osaka, Japan. And I got sick. And as a result of me getting sick, I ended up going to the University of Alabama because this is how long ago it was. In Oakwood, it was Oakwood University, now it's Oakwood College. It was $1,000 for a quarter for you to go to Oakwood. It was only $300 a semester for me to go to the University of Alabama, right? So you see how long you can even buy a book now for $300, okay? Just so everybody's clear on that. But it changed my life. When I was going to be in pre-med and going in that direction, now I shifted because I wanted to graduate. And it was a village, just like you. When I went off to college, I didn't have a lot of money. I needed $1,000. The church took up a collection. And because of that, the church, my community, was invested in me being successful. I was so happy to have that $1,000. I literally put it in my bra because I was so afraid I was going to lose it. And all the way to school, I held on to that $1,000 in my chest, which was a little smaller then, but I held on to that $1,000, making my way off to college. But every time I would come home, my church community and my family would ask me, Doc, how you doing? Doc, those kinds of questions. Some of them couldn't even read. But the $5 or $10 or whatever they gave for me to go off to college, I'll never, as you can see, never ever forget it. Because if it wasn't for that collective, that village, I might not be sitting in front of you today. So again, went off, ended up shifting my, moving into psychology and history and eventually counseling. I wanted to be a school counselor because again, I felt as if the school counselors had not given me the best advice on how to be successful. And again, a lot of the school counselors didn't look like me. So all of these things that have happened in my life have led me to right now. And in the introduction, she was talking about passion. I think anyone that's an educator or that's a teacher, you have to do it because you're passionate about it. I always have taught from the cradle to the grave. I was an elementary school teacher to 80-year-olds getting their doctoral degree. I know the power of education. So when I started looking at my students and looking at what they were having to go through and knowing the importance of representation and how representation matters and moving up through, I've gone through tenure twice. I've been at a research institution. I've been at teaching institutions. And again, not seeing people that look like me in leadership roles, it became not only my passion, but my mission. That yes, student affairs is what I love. I will ride on the bus with students, even at this age, talking about freedom rides and social justice and how young people still can make a difference. But I have to be there as an administrator, as an educator, bringing up the future you were talking about earlier, making sure that they can say, oh dang, Marcheta can do this, being raised really by my grandparents. And eventually I was legally adopted by my grandparents so I could get a Social Security check. Because again, I didn't have any money. And that $80 a month Social Security check was a lot of money back then for me to go to college. So I could go on and on and on about how I'm here today. We're talking about Bloomfield College. Bloomfield College being predominantly Black institution, Hispanic serving institution. 52% of my students are, again, again, first generation. 95% of my students are receiving some type of financial aid. These are the reasons why I'm here. I was not supposed to be at Bloomfield College. Bloomfield College was not on my trajectory. I had been in an institution that had 30,000 students, lots of students. My little metrics of if you want to be a president, what kind of school you want to be a part of as president, Bloomfield College did not fit that description. But God has a way of letting you know that your plans are not his plans sometimes. And I went to a conference, and in that conference, Bloomfield College is not for me. 3 times at that conference, people came up to me and talked to me about Bloomfield College. Just happy things. Sitting next to a woman, I said, where you from? Bloomfield College. I started laughing, right? A search firm person was there. I said, Marcheta, I really want to talk to you about Bloomfield College. The 3rd time, I had to stop, call my husband and say, okay, you're not going to believe this, and tell him the story, and apply for the job. First one interviewed, didn't think I was going to get it because I had to get back to graduation because I was a provost. I said, good luck with the search, right? Again, God had a different plan, and now I'm here as president of Bloomfield College.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. It was so beautiful and sharing. Really, it's very personal. But before we actually dive into the questions, I want us to kind of really recognize the power that's sitting before us. And out of Women's History Month, and not just women's, every day we need to advocate for making sure that that representation we spoke about is front-facing, right? And it's not just one month, and it's not just sometimes, it's all the time. So let's please give it up for the women who are here representing from the university. I really want to follow up with a question in regards to what you mentioned about much is given, right? And we hear that often. And all of us here come from different spaces. And I'm curious if you could expound a little bit more upon that. And what is our role in working together with folks like you who are higher education and partnering in creating a just society? This much is given philosophy.
You know, again, when we talk about much is given, a lot of times it's not necessarily the monetary or the material part of it. Really big into the service learning aspect of it. I think the greatest joy that you get is in service. And not necessarily people even know that you've given up yourself, giving up your time, giving up just your essence and who you are. My students come in, number one, no fault on the previous president, but do you even know what the president's office is? Have you been in the president's office? Do you see me sitting in the cafeteria, walking around and being there with you, hoping I will get thrown out of the basketball game because the referee just made a bad call? Just watching the NCAA on my way here, checking the score of South Carolina. Those kinds of things of being a part of the community. I am not just president for president name only and say, I'm the president, or I'm a female, or I'm whatever. It's again for me to give to the students, to pour into them, and actually pour back into me. More so during the pandemic, I saw it over and over again, just the impact. We have been given a lot and getting them to understand the opportunity. When you have, again, my community is black and brown, low income, the median family income for my students is just under $33,000. I don't even know how it's possible living here in New Jersey. So even with that, helping them understand that they can still give with the little that they have, and how to model for them and show them how they can give in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to talk with you into the questions about all the ways that the community gives to us, but also how we make sure that our students are responsible for giving back to the community through very organized, intentional ways that we're just not taking, that we're giving as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I definitely want to dive into a few more questions, but just for the sake of time, I definitely want to introduce someone very, very special, Dr. Abigail Johnson, who we know is phenomenal, retired Vice President of Academic Affairs for Hudson Community College in Jersey City, which also so happens to be my home. So please give her a round of applause.
me pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Margaret M. McMenamin, President of Union College of Union County, New Jersey. Since her appointment as president in July 2010, Dr. McMenamin has spurred and engaged the entire campus community in renewing their collective commitment to student success outcomes by revitalizing student services and strengthening academic advisement, among other actions. As a result, Union College has quintupled its graduation rate, as documented in the IPEDS, and that is the integrated post-secondary education data system that gathers information annually from every college, university, and technical and vocational institution that participates in the federal student financial aid programs. Last year, the Aspen Institute for College Excellence named Union College as one of the top 25 community colleges in America, and the semifinalist for the $1 million Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence, and we hope you get that prize. In 2020, Dr. McMenamin was named the Marie Martin Chief Executive Officer of the Year by the Association of Community College Trustees. She has served as chair of the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, chair of the American Association of Community Colleges Presidents Academic Executive Committee, and chair of the advisory board of the Higher Education Research and Development Institute. She's a member of the National Junior College Athletic Association President's Advisory Council and the board of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. And she's involved with numerous community organizations, including the boards of Trinitas Hospital, Union County Performing Arts Center, and the New Jersey PBS Community Advisory Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Abigail was one of the first people I met when I returned to New Jersey. I was born in New York. I was the third of 6 children to a couple old hippies. They were called beatniks then. I call them communists now, but we moved out of New York after the 5th kid was born. My father was afraid we were going to throw him off the balcony. We were living up in Morningside Gardens. My mother had gone to Barnard, and we have a Barnard person up here. It's always good to see somebody from Barnard. I grew up in New Jersey, rural New Jersey, Jackson. You know, Great Adventure? Okay. And my mother at one point had 5 kids 3 years old and under. She was 40 when I was born. There was a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, 2 1-year-olds, and a newborn. She lived to be 101. Remarkably, we didn't kill her. We killed my father, though he died at 70, unfortunately, when the youngest was just going away to college. So I try to explain me sometimes, and I think it's hard to explain yourself. I'm sure you all would have the same thing, but being in this beautiful church and meeting your wonderful pastor and seeing this program, I'm reminded of the Baltimore Catechism. It's one of the things you're taught when you're Roman Catholic, the Catechism. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker. The first question is, who made me? God made me. Why did God make you? That's the second question. God made me to know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him in this world and be with Him in the next. And I bought that. That's all I remember, by the way, of the whole thing. Serving God is why I got into physical therapy. I'm a physical therapist. I maintain my license in Pennsylvania. I met another physical therapist here. I'm usually able to spot them as soon as I walk in a room, and I did it today too. One of your members is a physical therapist, a UMDNJ graduate, and I graduated with a degree in physical therapy. Like President Evans, I plan to become a physician. But when you're the third of 6, and there are 2 up there at Cornell spending a lot of money, and I'm at Temple University brothers coming after me, and I have a twin sister. I knew that I had to graduate on time and get a job and support myself. So I flipped from medicine, pre-med, to physical therapy, and I was delighted. I loved it, and I also knew that I could serve God being a physical therapist. It gave me something good to do. That's why I did it. But I also learned that I like to talk and I like to teach. And I was invited to do a guest lecture at a rural community college in Pennsylvania, and that's when I got the bug for teaching. I eventually moved from a hospital to a community college teaching, and I decided that I could make a greater impact by teaching other physical therapy professionals as opposed to just treating my 10 patients. But then I got a little bit of a bug to move into administration because I saw some bad people going into leadership. And if you just sit back and say, I don't want to be in charge, I don't want to be a leader, but those leaders are terrible, they're corrupt, they don't care about the people, then you're as much a part of the problem as they are. So I decided to move from teaching into administration to make the college better. And that's what I did. Eventually returned to New Jersey, and that's when I had the great honor to meet Dr. Douglas Johnson and Dr. Yamba, two people who welcomed me back into New Jersey as I came back in 2005. And then I was led to Union County College, or new name Union College of Union County, New Jersey. But I have to tell you, I've been driven my whole life. That's how I describe myself, as driven. But I also believe I'm here for a reason. I'm here to serve. Now, there's a lot of different ways to serve. When I was interviewing for PT school, the director said, why do you want to be a PT? And I said, I want to help people. And he said, go be a garbage person who can help people collect the trash. So I needed to become more articulate in why I wanted to serve and what I wanted to do. Now, I believe I'm on a mission at Union County College, or Union College. When I got there, we had the lowest graduation rates in the state of New Jersey. We also had the highest paid faculty for a community college in the state of New Jersey. Now, you can blame the students if you want to, but that's not what I chose to do because I knew it wasn't the students' fault. It wasn't. It was people who had lost their way. They came to the college in the 60s and 70s when President Evans and I were just being formed. We were young kids, high school kids, watching the marches and the protests. They were at the college, and they came to the college for the right reasons. But 30, 40 years later, they lost their way. And the people at my college, and I'll venture to say a lot of colleges, although that doesn't make me very popular among other presidents, they had forgotten why they came there and got too comfortable and decided that the work was too hard. Decided to blame the students. So when the chair of my faculty in my first summer at the college, when I said, why are graduation rates so low? And he said, the kids are just stupid. And I said, so they're dumber in Union County than they are in Newark? Yeah, that's what he said. They're dumber in Union County than Camden or Patterson or Atlantic City? Yeah. He said, yeah. He said, it's way too hard to teach them. And I said, well, why don't you leave here and go down the road to Princeton? My dog could teach those kids down there. And I began to quote one of my favorite, beyond President Yamba, one of my favorite college presidents in this country, a guy from Florida, who said, teach the students you have, not the ones you wish you had. If this work is too hard, go to another college. So over the past 13 years, that's what I've been doing, working to make our college better for the students we serve in our community. I don't know this community. I don't know South Orange. Beautiful church, seems like a great community, but my focus You know, I gave up for world peace, trying to solve the problems in the Middle East. I'm not going to end the war in Ukraine. I can't do that. But what I've committed to doing in my service is to make our college, which is, we call our colleges democracy's colleges, because we give everybody an opportunity. And my commitment is, I'm going to make our college as good as it should be, and as good as it can be for the students who come to us for an opportunity for a better life. And that's what I've done. It hasn't made me real popular among some, President Evans and President Yamba excluded from that group, but we can do more for our students, for our kids, and we should. And that's what I'm all about at Union, and that's how I'm serving God. Thank you.
That's all. So I would love a follow-up question, if that's all right, Dr. McMenamin. In regards to, you mentioned often use this term, kind of closing the gap and cracking the nut. Right? Not just a joke right in, but I think it's such a powerful message in regards to the fierce urgency now, as you say, often say, that our students, our children, do not have time for us to wait 3, 5, 10 years before change happens. I would love to hear more about what does that actually mean in regards to structural changes and your position and philosophy of making that happen.
Well, one of the things we do great in higher ed is we form committees, okay, right? We form committees to study things, and then we form pilots where we might pilot something for a little while and see if it works, and then we'll form another committee to analyze how that pilot worked. Every single day that we wait to take action, we lose students. Every day, students are dropping out of college, dropping out of their opportunities, and never getting back in. So I have this thing, I say driven's easier, but I'll tell you, it's like something inside me that's like a time bomb that's burning up that says, we gotta do it now. We've gotta do it today. So we abandoned the typical higher ed protocol of forming committees and engaging constituents and getting buy-in. Now I know this is unpopular among a lot of folks. It is. But I felt that fierce urgency of now because I knew my students were dropping out or worse yet, disappearing. You start a class with 20 students. Every college, you start a class with 20 students. And then I say to the person, how many kids in your class now? And they say, oh, I got 15. I said, well, what happened to the other 5? And you know what they said? They disappeared. And you know what I said? Did you call the police? They disappeared. They didn't disappear. We ignored them and they were gone. So every single day I felt that fierce urgency to take action. And in higher ed, it is heresy. From that interfere word in the church. But it is. It's heresy to just take action. But that's what we did. We took radical action, and I got vilified and attacked, and they went after me. But I survived. I'm still here, president 13 years later, and we made the changes necessary to do it. But it required not studying things, not forming committees, not piloting things with a tiny number of students and then bragging all across the country about how you helped 5 black kids pass developmental math. It was a miracle. And I said, how did that change their lives? Not one iota. Don't ask me about President Kevin's students are my students.
highlighting some of the initiatives from a social justice perspective that you have initiated at Bloomfield College. You can share a little bit more about that as well.
Sure, definitely. I think I've already mentioned earlier that a lot of my students are dealing with socioeconomic income, median family income is $33,000. So my kids are dealing with housing insecurity, food insecurity, any insecurity you can imagine they're dealing with. What's really big is happening on campus now, again, Black and brown, low income, we're dealing with mental health. That is a major, not because of my background. And I think, again, I have to say that people in your life for a reason, a season, or lifetime. And I think about why did I become a president of Bloomfield College at this particular time with these students during the pandemic. My kids suffered so much during the pandemic. Yes, we got federal funding, we gave them these nice shiny computers, but guess what? They didn't have the infrastructure to do with the Wi-Fi to get on those nice shiny computers that we gave them. Okay? You don't think about that beyond. They go, why aren't you showing up for class? Going back to some of the statements they disappeared. What do you mean they disappeared? One of the reasons why they come to a school like Bloomfield College was I know their name, I know the grandmother's name, the auntie, everybody. Some of them actually call me auntie because that's like, you may think it's a good thing, but sometimes it's a bad thing because if I know you, I'm looking for you. Right? Knowing why you're not showing up, why you're not going to tutoring, why aren't you doing what you need to do to be successful? I've shared with you all over again, I had one student lose 9 family members. Can you even imagine that because of the pandemic? It disproportionately impacted the Black, the brown, the poor. So when, President McMenamin was talking earlier in regards to why we do what we do, it has to be because we're passionate about it. We have to make sure we talk about equity. Equity is not equality. Those are 2 different things. How do we measure that for what the students actually need when they come to a place like Bloomfield College? Now I'm a mother of 6, okay? And of that 6, 5 of them are daughters. See, God had a sense of humor, okay, with that, because I was a student athlete, don't know nothing about doing hair, and he gave me 5 daughters with lots of hair. That's a big deal in the African American community. Every Sunday, we would cry because I had to do with it. Everybody had to take a nap because you get ready for school for the week, dealing with something as simple as hair, and they went back to the motherland with their hair, so it was nappy, fit, all those kinds of things that we talk about. It was an adventure. Well, my young people at Bloomfield College are dealing with the same things as far as connections, the need, first generation, how to write an email to a professor, how not to get upset. I have mothers coming to campus, and it goes back to, again, the social work counseling part of it. They're coming to campus, parents, looking for the child with a work study check. Just think about that for a second from a social justice perspective. Now, they're dealing with food insecurity and housing insecurity. The kids, because we only have a limited amount of work study money, only working 8 to 10 hours a week, that little work study check is not much. But the family needs it. So how do we help them? I have kids working 2 to 3 jobs, trying to get their education. I had to go before the legislature on last Thursday to talk about Bloomfield College, because we're actually merging with Margaret State, going from a private institution to a public institution. And graduation rates came up. Now, most people, when they think about graduation rates, they don't understand how graduation rates are calculated. Graduation rates are calculated on freshmen coming in first semester, going through straight through for 4 years. Now, we look at individuals that go to community colleges, we look at individuals that transfer in and out or have to stop out. They're not counted as a part of that. A third of my students are transfer students. So when one of the legislators asked me about my graduation rate and how abysmal it was, I'm like, come to my graduation when 250 students walk across the stage. They may not be calculated at 20% as far as 4-year, but they finish, right? 3 students getting a degree in computer science making $106,000 a year. That not only transforms that student's life, it transforms the whole system. Their siblings. Now I'm dealing with financial literacy. So we go everything from dealing with Tony's Kitchen, that helps me with the food insecurity and the housing. I have a college food pantry. We deal with projects during the holidays and during the summer and the know, retention is higher when a student lives on campus, but again, my students can't afford it. So how do we provide for them on the weekends? For those commuter students, for those families. All of that is a part of what we're trying to do to empower and getting students to serve in each one of these areas. Tony's Kitchen in Montclair may give us food, but then how do we go out and collect food as well to give back to Tony's Kitchen, even though they're getting it from the food bank? You know, all of this can go on and on and on, but it's about how do we give back that service we talked about. All of that is a part of the social justice piece. And I know we'll have some more questions related to that, but that's just a little kind of appetizer of some of the things that we do at Bloomfield.
No, absolutely. That's just really the core essence of returning back to what universities are made for. Is are we truly centering how social mobility is made and looks like in every aspect? Structurally,
I think it might go.
He has one. He has one.
Oh,
He has one in his lapel.
Put it up high. How about now? Is that better?
That's good.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic.
From there, the good one. I don't know what kind of microphone.
I think I probably got the faulty one. All right. Fantastic. As following up with a great point Dr. Evans made in regards to graduation rates, I would really love to hear a little bit more about the graduation rates among Black men and the initiatives that you've done, Dr. McMenamin, at Union College, which to me has been quite outstanding.
But when we launched we call it Operation Graduation. And when we launched Operation Graduation, we saw immediate impact. And it was targeted, individualized assistance to students. But after 1 year of our Operation Graduation launch, we took a look at the data. Right now, everything's about data, higher ed, all about data. We took a look at the data and saw everyone went up except for our Black male students. And what we learned was that we were allowing some of our minority students, particularly the Black men, meander around the curriculum without any guidance. So we created a very targeted program, we call it Project Achievement, and we enlisted people in our community. I went to Black leaders in the community, Black leaders on our boards, and said, these are the numbers. Do we want this on the front page of the Star Ledger? And they were horrified, as I was, and helped us create a program that engaged our men privately. Those young men coming to the college, yes, first time, full-time. First time, full-time, 18-year-old men with a dream for a better life for themselves and their families. And we had failed them by not providing them with the roadmap to get there. We found at Union that the most successful interventions were something, and Dr. Rios had mentioned this earlier to me, we call it intrusive intervention. We did not wait for those young men to come and ask for help. For some reason, some folks don't want to knock on the door and ask for help. I get it. My twin sister, pathologically shy. She went to Toastmasters, she can't talk in public, anything. I would say we're complete opposites. She's tall, beautiful, and nice. But we found that our young men did not want to ask for help. So when we created our intrusive intervention program, we hired a few people, didn't work out, didn't want to work, then found the right people who actually gave a darn. I won't say the other word in church, but you know what I mean. They cared. They were willing to do the work, and that work is knocking on doors, calling them on the phone, emailing. Oh, it wasn't, well, I emailed him, he never responded, he disappeared. It was, I emailed him, I texted him, and I called him, and then when he didn't respond, I stood outside the classroom door and waited for him to come out, and then I grabbed him. We had mothers calling us, maybe one of you ladies called us, said, stop bothering my son. And I said, call him twice tomorrow. Intrusive intervention, engaging legitimate leaders in the community. Not just people who want to BS and talk about all their accomplishments. accomplishments, but people who actually cared about students and knew and had crossed the finish line themselves and were able to inspire our young men to do the same. And our program worked. It worked to such a degree that our haters became right on the bandwagon, and I'm willing to give everybody the credit. They joined us, and we were able to get those national awards. It wasn't me. I am the hood ornament. We found the right people and let them do what was necessary to get folks to believe in themselves. Because I think one reason why people were dropping out was they didn't feel like they belonged there. You all have heard about the imposter syndrome, right? We got a lot of students who they're the first person in their family to go to college. And maybe they were told by a teacher or a guidance counselor, or maybe a disciplinarian. I hated my vice principal in high school. I think he was sadistic. Maybe these students were told by folks you never amount to anything. You ought to just join the military. You're not college material. So we hired people who cared enough to help our students understand that they had every right to higher education, that they did belong in college, and that they can succeed and they can achieve their degree. And in some cases, that's all you need, is somebody to believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. I was sitting there in my doctoral program at Lehigh thinking I could never get through it. My dissertation director was torturing me. But my mother believed in me, and she helped. She did help. Certainly prayer helped too, but having someone who believes in you to help you believe in yourself. Right now we talk about DEI, but in community colleges, we talk about DEIB. And the B is belonging. Our students needed to feel like they belonged with us, that they deserved to be there, that they were college material, and that's how we did our transformation. Social justice is about opportunity. And all those folks out there saying, oh, you really don't need a college degree these days. All their kids are at Villanova or Bucknell or Lehigh. It's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I'm hearing a lot of words. I'll just use this mic. Is that okay? All right. We'll just make it go round. All right. I'm hearing a lot of words such as belongingness, family, auntie, right? It's really saturating humanness and love in institutions where, quite frankly, it's moving more towards looking at students as numbers and as a business, right? Which often is very, very contrary to the role of what you think a president should do or is doing in higher education. Could you speak a little bit more about the role of higher education now, not post-pandemic, because we're still in the pandemic, but in a very sort of volatile world where it's unstable in regards to whether it's current trends of education, political. Speak a little bit more about what do you think the role of higher education should be today?
And I'm going to probably be a little bit different than a traditional. I'm not sure that it takes 120 credit hours for you to get a degree. I'm not sure, again, that it takes 12 years of being in school, K through 12, to actually be ready to go into post-secondary. So I'm a little bit different on that. I'm not sure I believe we need to have off during the summers. Again, as far as having been that teacher, and then you have to, I've taught where, you're off for 2.5, 3 months, and then you have to teach for the first 6 weeks to get kids back up to speed, then go into the next grade year. So I'm a little bit different, related to how the traditional roles of education and what it should be. For me, it's about transformation. It's about opening the mind. It's about experiences that students maybe would not have an opportunity to have any other time or any other place by being there, being in higher education. When they walk away, they should be transformed in a lot of different ways, not with their mind, whatever their major is, but also experiences and relationships beyond the ones they've had through K-12 or whatever, through the church, which is a big socialization piece. And so when we talk about education, and someone talked about the guidance counselor, that's every time I would hear on TV, and someone would get up and talk about how awful the guidance counselor was. And how awful the guidance counselor was in regards to, I survived in spite of them. And I would tell you, I was one of the ones when I went out to college, I would say, don't go talk to the advisor. Because if you want to graduate on time, don't go talk to the advisor. I'm like, what the heck? That's their job, right? So again, it became part of my mission, my plan, my passion to kind of flip that script. That's why I went up through leadership in the council profession and became the president of this and the president of that, was to say this is the importance of our job. Don't be that story that's on TV where the person is successful and said, I survived in spite of my guidance counselor, right? Because on the whole point, now granted, those are probably the minorities, but those are the ones that you cringe when you hear, because that's what you feel that you're so passionate about, that's supposed to make a difference. That awful teacher that you had, even a bad example is a good example of what not to do. Of how I said, I will never be a teacher like that teacher was, because of, right? So when we look at the role of higher education, I have daughters that attended at Institution University of Texas that has 60,000 students. One class that had over 500 students or more in a classroom, right? Then I have two of my daughters who attended the same school that we went to that had 1,500 students. Each one of them are successful. One's a professor at Auburn, another is a biomedical engineer, other can save in the World Food Corps, whatever. All of them are successful, but each child had to be in a different type of institution for them to be successful. Even the one that was a genius that went to the University of Texas, her first semester she started out there with 100 students in biomedical engineering. 100 students. Only two black girls were in biomedical engineering. The first semester, 50 students dropped out. It was what they call a weed out program.
I apologize for interrupting there, but we haven't done two things. We haven't involved a lot of talent out here, and we haven't addressed, if we look at the capital letters at the top of the program, it starts with, toward a just society. Then it says the role of higher education in seeking to achieve this goal. So I'm hoping if we involve some other talent in this, and not of course excluding the important talent and the way that those important people up there have addressed it. But now if we bring some other talent in and keep this talent going, we can talk about what a just society is like. Is this the United States of America today a just society? If not, in what way is it not? And what can be done about it? That's what I say.
Thank you so much.
Amen. I will give you my version. It's not a just society for a lot of people that look like me. It's not a just society, again, for poor people in a lot of different environments. And what can be done about it, again, goes back to equity versus equality and understanding what that actually means to the individual. Not everybody needs everything or needs the same thing. And higher education is part of our responsibility to make sure that we help our students navigate even when it's not just. Because it's not going to automatically happen overnight. And that's honestly what I feel and what I know, because I've lived it. From, again, part of my history that I've shared earlier. This, sometimes you feel as if you're taking 2 steps forward, you get knocked 3 steps back. So again, dealing with the politics and everything that happens, I get amazed about about where we are as far as a justice, even how we define justice. Now DEI, they're putting J in there, and some people call it Jedi, because just has to be a part of it, and that's defined differently depending on the individual that you're talking to, but then collectively also depending on the groups that you're talking to. Now I'll pass it on to somebody else to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not a just society. We're trying to make it better. But our mission, we make it better through education. People say, what do you do to make the world better? What are you doing for social justice? I mean, I thought I got asked that question, especially during the pandemic and especially after George Floyd's murder. And I said, I'm not marching, I'm not carrying a sign, my feet hurt and I'm afraid of COVID, but I'm doing 3 things. This is what we do. We graduate more students of color. That's what we do. Because we know getting a piece of paper, getting that sheepskin opens doors. It does. It opens doors, period. What else? We get more women, and frankly, I think women and people of color into leadership positions. We can't, oh yeah, my college diverse, it's the public safety officers and the facilities guys. No, I'm talking about big time leadership positions. That's how we change the world. We've got to do it. But in order to get the door open to even be eligible for that leadership position, you need that sheepskin. And the third thing we do, at least at Union College, is we're trying, and this one's the toughest nut, we are trying to revise the criminal justice curriculum. Because I sat there listening to Ben Crump in that news conference after Tyree Nichols got murdered. And he talked about it's the culture, it's the police culture. Community colleges are the ones who've educated most of the cops out there. Okay, you get pulled over, he probably graduated from Dr. Yamba's school or my school. We've got to change our criminal justice curriculum from the inside, and now's a great opportunity. They tell me the police academies are desperate for people. And the people we get into the police academies today are going to be the lieutenants, the captains, and the chiefs 20 years from now. So we're pushing our kids to go into law enforcement because this is a window of opportunity for us to make a difference for the next generation. That's how we do justice society at Union.
Thank you so much. I think it's a great segue to Dr. Manley's point. To really bring some questions from the audience, if that's all right. There's some cards that going around at this point. And if there's any questions from the audience, that'd be great to include folks in the conversation.
They don't have any questions. The audience can say you're a damn fool, and if they want to, and it's not a question, it's just saying you're not examining this question of how we have more just society. They can say that.
All right, yeah, absolutely. So any comments or questions are absolutely welcome at this time. Yes. Do we have a microphone, or are we going to hand off this hands up? I'm not sure.
Am I be able to be heard by you at least? I heard recently a statistic that had to do with conversion and people, and I see that it's in a broader sense, around 16 or 17, if you haven't made a decision about where your life is going at that point, that's the time it's made. But also when I was doing my master's in reading specialization, they said that if you had not, by second grade, gotten to around grade level in reading, the chances of catching up later are very poor. And so I hear you, and that's not the case for all the kids who are disappearing. But some of them are just not capable of the work at that point. However, if they have the purpose, and if they have the backing, if they have the help, they can achieve, and someone who believes in it. How can maybe those before you be addressed, maybe even like some of your graduates? How can we assist people in between those two places, as well as, I guess my question is, how do you help those who have such deficits that are, you know, difficult things to overcome?
We deal with it every day. Now, what we do in higher ed is kids come to us unprepared. Historically, we've blamed the high schools. And the high schools blame the elementary schools, and guess who the elementary schools blame? The parents. So that's unproductive. We deal with it every day. And what we do is pull up our pants and go to work, get them going. Inspiration, dedication, and expertise in those areas. I mean, we get kids all the time who are reading at a low grade level or don't have the ability. But we don't give up on them. We work with them all the time. Higher ed's filled with students who maybe didn't have the benefit of a great school system or didn't have my mother or her parents or her grandparents to help them. But we're trying to produce better teachers as well.
And the sad thing is we're getting people less and less that want to go into education. We're getting people less and less that want to go into education that want to be a teacher. And you look at the reason why is that. Specifically, young people of color that don't want to be teachers right now. Is it because of the income? Is it because of the environment they find themselves in? It's a lot of different variables that are coming into play. A lot of students can't pass what's called Praxis 1. And getting them past Praxis 1 to get into education to eventually get to Praxis 2. Once we get them past that, then they can become educators. But they're making that because, again, of society saying, oh, you don't want to be a teacher. Why do you want to be a teacher? You want to go into the STEM area, you can make more money, you can help your family. All those are valid reasons. But again, going back to what we were talking earlier about people not really knowing what they want to do, this whole concept of what we call meta majors, where it's a concept of, and not just laser focused on one. Most jobs and corporations these days want you to be able to do a lot of different things, not just focus on one thing. How do we help prepare our students to be ready for the workforce? That's important, okay? So he had a question.
Yeah, absolutely. If I just add one thing as well, I really love just thinking about something very practical to the answer to that question. Is looking at students as whole people, as well as their families, as well as the system. As well as the communities that they're a part of. And that's why I really gravitate towards this perspective of this intrusive intervention, because it's not only working within the classroom, but it's going beyond, and it's going including the entire family, because sometimes there's things that are missed, just like test taking. Test taking is not a complete, accurate description of intelligence or measure of worth of a person. And if we have to move way beyond just how we engage in the classroom to make sure that those deficits that may exist, we get to find out what the root looks like.
Bottom line is, the majority of the people in this room were not welcome in higher ed before 1975. Women, people of color, you weren't welcome in higher ed. So there are a lot of parts of higher ed that have been excluding you for years. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Please.
Hi, I'm Margaret. Thank you so much for your sharing your story and inspiration. I mean, I'm Margaret. Now, the question I have, and actually a comment regarding the intrusive intervention, and I think that should be a model for universities nationwide, because as a scholar myself, and having educated students of color and many other different types of students, I see that as a huge deficit in university systems. And my question is, because just listening to your story, how do I then become president?
Talk to us afterwards.
Well, the first thing you do is you get the piece of paper. You get the degree. That's how. And we'll talk later. Great question. Go ahead. Tell me.
We got a question over here. Move to the back.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you so much. got a simple question for you. What educational priorities at your school address the educational gap between whites and minorities?
So the question is, how do you address the gap, education gap between whites and minorities?
What educational priorities do you have at your school that address the
At Union, we have 4 institutional priorities, broad priorities that guide everything we do. Enrollment, first of all. We need students. No margin, no mission. You know that, Reverend. Second one is student success. Now, 75 to 80% of our students are students of color. So, if we just focus on the white students, we'll never be successful. It's all students. That's what we do, and that is one of 4 institutional priorities. The third one is innovation, and the fourth one is DEIJ, justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, and now I'm told I should put the B in there too for belonging. But it guides everything we do. How does X program influence graduation rates for men of color? How does it influence anybody's graduation rates? And I have defunded programs that were your hobby horse, or your program, or Dr. Manley's favorite, that had no impact on student success. We defund them. We allocate resources to programs that have a direct impact on student success. Now recently I heard, well I probably shouldn't say, but I heard people criticizing Rutgers for buying chicken wings for kids. I buy chicken wings for kids all the time. If feeding kids helps them stay in school, I'm all over. If taking kids on a bus trip to the Statue of Liberty, where evidently the schools aren't doing it anymore, we have students never been there, we live right next door to it, I'm going to fund it. Because we know students who do those class trips are more likely to stay in school. So this is where we tie it to the data. Show me athletics. I mean, 40 years ago, more than that, 45 years ago, I was a student athlete. I'm not an athlete anymore. I don't give a darn about athletics. The only reason why we should fund athletics is because it keeps kids in school. It attracts them to come, helps them stay, and it also builds character. You see those young men when they win and lose, you teach them how to win and lose. Those young women, and you teach them how to work together. You teach them how to deal with adversity. That's why we fund athletics, but if my athletes don't graduate, I fire the coach. It's that simple.
Dr. Rios.
Thank you.
Dr. Rios, would you recognize this gentleman here and stand here basically?
Absolutely. So we also have a few questions. So I want to be mindful that there are also folks who have written down questions that weren't comfortable coming to the mic. So right after this gentleman, and I'll answer a few questions from the audience. Thank you.
Hello everyone. My name is Margaret. I was professor of sociology at Hudson County Community College for more than 5 years. And I was louder. So I just retired 2 years ago. I retired from the college after 35 years of teaching sociology. And I have a problem. Well, I teach one. I have many problems. Let me share one. One problem that I'm thinking about as we talk about social justice is really the question of what is justice. And you mentioned criminal justice. In that context, justice means retribution, it means punishment, and so forth. And in criminal justice field, when you talk about somebody who committed a crime, you want justice for the victim. Justice means punish or do something else to the criminal. I know you're shaking your head as if this is not. Okay, but it's a question of definition. We in this culture, in this society, we don't have a common language. So different groups, different people, different institutions refer to justice in different terms. And so when you're speaking of justice by giving and so forth, that's fine, but that works in the micro system. How about the
it very, very quickly, because I know Dr. Manley will be cutting it off in this second. But, you know, again, hoping of justice, we have actually, we've done, talking about your degree, the curriculum, we changed it to criminology and social justice, and the same thing as far as what our actual degree is in. Restorative justice is another piece of that, but it's understanding what is a just society, going back to what this title is. It's not just about punishment. It's again, how are we doing the right thing for the right reason with the right people. That to me is justice. Now, of course, it varies. The whole definition varies, depending on who's looking at it, right? Through what lens are you looking at it from? The whole thing, again, understanding why people commit crimes. A crime of a husband going into a pharmacy and holding up the medicine because, again, he can't afford to pay for it, again, is that justice. Now he's a part of the criminal justice system. But he's saving his family or saving his wife, and we all can determine this. He broke the law. Is it right? Again, is that just? So again, part of it is coming to a place like a higher education institution and having conversations, expanding your mind. Life is not black and white. There's context, there's color. There's a reason why these kids maybe are not succeeding in college or in high school. It's not because they can't do it. Maybe they haven't been exposed to it. Maybe again they're dealing with food or housing insecurity. All these things come into play, and we have to understand that. And that's what higher education does. It's higher education, right? It's opening your mind, expanding it to say, again, life is not just black and white. There's color, there's gray, all of that, and circumstances for us to understand.
Absolutely. And I'm going to read a question from the audience at this time. It's actually a question for each of you, so it's wonderful. Just being mindful of time as well, so we'll do a couple of these. The first one is Dr. McMenamin. What is UCC's ranking today? It's actually a two-part question for you. And number two, you attended Tulane on the sports scholarship, Title VII. What's your take on affirmative action in light of the case pending in the U.S. Supreme Court?
Okay, I went to Temple University, not Tulane. I'm not a New Orleans girl. The Title IX case, is that about the trans athletes? I don't even know what case is in there, Title IX case.
It says 7 here.
Title VII?
I believe it's the affirmative action case.
Oh, the affirmative action case, that one. It doesn't impact me at all. It doesn't, I mean, we are, a community college is an open access institution, okay? Open access. All of you are welcome to apply, and we will admit every single one of you. So we don't have quotas. So it's just one of those problems I'm not involved in, so I stay focused on my own problems. So that's what I do. We have, our graduation rates have risen since 2014 when we launched Operation Graduation. When I got there in 2010, the new president of Essex County College leaned over to me at the first president's meeting, Edith, and she said, "Thank God for Union County College." And I said, "Edith, why are you saying that?" She said, "But for you, we have the lowest graduation rate in the state." So we have made steady progress. Our graduation rates have gone up every year since 2014, except the first COVID year. But even in that first COVID year, our black male graduation rates continue to rise. So for every year that we've launched that Project Achievement initiative, we have had rising graduation rates for our black men. They're now at 30% from 5%. The national average for community colleges is 22% for the general population and about 12% for black males. Now we're at 30%, we intend to keep moving, to keep going up. We have open access, anybody can come in, but we're totally focused on helping them cross the finish line when they leave.
Thank you so much. Dr. Evans, your question is really last one, and we'll... All right, one more question. But this is the follow-up, I guess, in regards to the same member. What should regards to relying on the advisors? That's the question.
One should get good advisors, at institutions. That's a big deal as far as this, the whole reforming of the advising policy. Having been a national president of the counseling association, the national standard is, in high school specifically, there should be one counselor for every 250 students. That, 250 is a lot, right? Most of them will get to 400 students. Making sure we have enough counselors, advisors, social workers, again, depending on the demographic that we're working in, that they're getting their needs met. There's a difference between counseling and social work. Most people don't understand that, but it is, okay? So understanding that, giving them the resources, the needs are there. I'm gonna just keep it really short and brief, but getting the right people, as she said earlier, you will not disrespect my students. You will treat them as adults. I will help them learn how to navigate. But if you don't want to be here, find a job somewhere else. Because you are every teacher that goes in, you're the most important tool in that classroom. Beyond the importance of the students. The power dynamic that teacher holds to make or break someone's future. I need everyone on my campus to understand, even the food service people, because they are the ones that are coming in contact with my students every single day. And they're the ones that will come and say, I think you need to check on so-and-so, right? Because it needs to be checked on. And again, that intrusive, someone was talking earlier, that is a national model, specifically working with minority students, that you know them, you're engaged with them. And it starts even before they start the first class, as far as being involved and engaged.
Thank you. Please.
I am following up on Dr. Manley reminded us of the title of this talk today and mentioned society. Society is looking at the large picture. So we have been listening and learning a lot about the activities in the community colleges toward those who are lucky to be in the college, and then we would like to work with them and encourage them, motivate them to graduate. But now, let's think, on the broad picture, what do we do to attract students to come to the community college? Then we need that bridge to be built with the high school. So coming to college is a reward for doing well in school. So the question, what efforts are being made to go the other way of the bridge to attract and recruit students to come to the college?
That's a great question.
Just about every community college in the state, and I know many of our four-year schools have programs in all of the high schools. We call it dual enrollment. I don't know what you have here in Essex County, but there are really two types of dual enrollment in my model. One is for the really high-performing kids. You want to learn a new language, you want to take differential equations or something like that, you could take a high-flying academic course for your honors students. They could take a college-level course while they're still in high school. And that model's out there, dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment. But I also believe in dual enrollment for some of the poorest performing students in high schools. Because they're not dumb, they're just not doing well. That school, that curriculum is not inspiring them. Maybe you're an artist and you can't stand math. But if we got you into a college-level graphic design class with some of the super software, you would blossom, and maybe you'd begin to think about, maybe I am college material. Maybe if I pay attention in English and algebra, I'll be able to go to school and get a degree in graphic design and do what it is I want to do. So, part dual enrollment is inspiring poor performing kids that they can do well in college. And part of dual enrollment is to give high performing students an opportunity to get college credits while they're still in high school. So we do a whole lot, especially in New Jersey. I mean, we are a very well-educated state. And this state does a great job of funding K-12 education. We criticize the state for a lot. But K-12 in New Jersey is something we should be proud of.
Absolutely. And Dr. Evans, yeah, absolutely. But if it's possible, I would love to you could answer that question, but in regards to, you know, one, how is this in relation to higher ed as a community as we begin to sort of close in these thoughts?
Sure, so this is my closing thought. The student needs to start believing almost in utero that higher education is a possibility for them. And what I mean by that is we used to have this thing of higher ed being the ivory tower and people come to the ivory tower. Well, now we have to go out, especially for the communities that we serve, for them to see us, to know that it's a possibility, right? So I had the honor of going to an elementary school recently and be a judge, because it was Black History Month, for an HBCU day, okay? Now, Bloomfield College is a 4-year, predominantly Black institution, Hispanic serving institution, minority serving institution, all those federal designations. There are no HBCUs in New Jersey, but they invited me as the president of PDI to come to the elementary school to judge, right? So now I'm actually at the school, judging this competition, where all of these classes had to pick an HBCU from across the United States and do a chant, we call it stepping, or to do some type of thing related to an HBCU. The winners of that HBCU competition at different levels are now invited to my campus, to come to my campus, to have lunch, to hang out with what we call storytellers, because at Bloomfield College it's called Write Your Own Story. They'll be on campus now, elementary school students, seeing what happens on college campuses. So much is relational. Success is relational. When you're struggling, it's relational. It's like a relationship that you have. They have got to start early. The parents of those elementary school students have got to say, I see my child going to this school. It doesn't have to just be an HBCU, but just the thought of higher education is instilled in them now. They're walking around in Morehouse or Spelman or Howard or whatever, Bloomfield College, that now I can do this. It has to start early with the community. And also, I'll put this on your last thing, with the church. I've gone to churches. You have got to pick your young people. We're getting less and less young people coming to church. But you as a congregation have to start instilling it with them as well.
Thank you so much. Dr. McMenamin, final thoughts very quickly?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one comment. Very often, we see students, and I mentioned this earlier, who don't believe in themselves, and we try to get them to believe that they belong with us. But we experience some other issues, and this may exist in the high schools, and I know it exists in the colleges. Something that George W. Bush once called, I never thought I'd be quoting George Bush, but he's looking pretty good right now. George Bush talked about the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. We need to keep our expectations high. When we say, oh, you came from a bad school district, you couldn't possibly take the full load. Or your parents didn't go to college, so let's have you start part-time. We are cheating those kids. We know that time is one of the biggest obstacles to graduation. The longer you keep them in there, the less likely they're going to graduate. The soft bigotry of lowered expectations is something that exists in colleges and universities all over the country. I said in 75, I graduated from high school. I wanted to go to Notre Dame. They didn't take women. I wanted to go to West Point. They didn't take women. The challenge is when we reluctantly allowed people of color and women and poor people into the higher ed system, but they couldn't possibly take a full load. Now my children, they better take 18 credits and graduate in 4 years. But you should probably take 6 credits and we'll see how you do after that. That's what's happening in colleges and universities today. The advisors are advising the kids to take less while they're forcing their own children to take more. And that's where we've got to stop. For a just society, And we've got to talk about it. We've got to call it out. It's the end.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
Sitting here, has a little experience across the border in Canada.
Yes.
She was in Calgary. I don't think she was there for the stampede either. She was there as conductor of the Calgary to New York. Unless she's here and has something she wants to say.
All right, fantastic. I'll recognize Susan in one moment. I do want to just acknowledge that there are many questions we did not get to today. However, there's going to be a little time afterwards for refreshments, and please we welcome you through this door. Thank you. Through this door to come and fellowship with us and continue to ask and continue dialogue. Susan, do you want to add something? I think you were called.
I was going to mention what you just did, that maybe we could have more questions, close range during the reception, which is great. But my very quick question, I'm intrigued by the idea of the quicker, maybe when you're 15 and 16 and 17 or 14, learning skills that will be employable. And I just wondered if you see opportunities or greater interest in students thinking of the two roles that we need as citizens. One is stewards of our environment, so that we have a healthy environment in the future. Is there growing interest in that? Are there questions about what I can do to lead that among students? And the other is civics. How do we enable our democracy to work better and be engaged? I'm just wondering from the president, in one sentence each, do you see a growing interest among students in those two questions?
Yes, to the climate change issue. I mean, I was around the first Earth Day. You remember April 22nd, 1970? We marched around, did something stupid, whatever. They're into it. They're really into it. They are pressing us to recycle. They're saying, what are you doing? They're much more into it. And they think we have screwed up the world. They're accusing us. And we have. We're guilty. They're very environmentally sensitive.
And I'll add this very quickly too. We started a community garden. We're just garden planting and beautification around campus. And my students had never put their hands in the soil. Did not know how to plant again, thinking of where my students came from, mainly from Essex County, New York area. They were amazed at the opportunity. That's higher education, opportunity of transformation. And starting their own little gardens and things along those lines. I mean, garden styles on cup. We have different things that we have on campus and gardening. I know it sounds minor, but it's not. It's something that's impactful. The whole thing again with the recycling club, what it is. We're trying to get a grant with the Bloomfield Township on composting. So again, these are things that we're exposing our students to. In some cases, they never have. First generation overhead level. Again, and I see these things kind of building what you're saying, not necessarily as a deficit, but as an opportunity. And we're more focused, strength-based than deficit-focused. Building on what they do bring to the table and how we build on that.
Not so much on civics, though. I don't hear them talking about it.
Right.
Civics, other than dealing with social justice and Black Lives Matter.
Thanks, folks. Thank you very much.
And I would say very quickly too, I can't stay around much longer because actually I'm on a pickleball team and it starts at 6 o'clock. So I think I'm going to bed now.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll say my closing remarks for Reverend Valencia. Thank you all so much again.
Campus sports.
Well, I actually wanted to end with a short illustration that really struck me this week, quite frankly, the topic of a just society. And I was watching this great comic that, if you could visualize with me, a group of students after a blizzard trying to get into a school. And half of the students were waiting on the side, and as the janitor or the maintenance person was shoveling halfway down, there was a young man on the left side who was in a wheelchair waiting up the ramp, and he says, "Can you shovel the ramp?" And the janitor says to him, "Absolutely, I'm 3/4 down. Let me finish shoveling the ramp. I'm recently shoveling the stairs, I'll get to the ramp." And the young man replies, "Well, if we shovel the ramp, we could all get in."
Yes.
So as we think about how we societies, that we're designing out those who are most impacted, so that we begin to shovel the way. Thank you.
I want to make sure that I give both of our honorees just 1 minute of speaking time, and we are so glad to have you here with family.
Thank you very much, Pastor, and thank you to the church for this wonderful presentation this afternoon. And our main speakers today did a super job. I think we need more leaders like them in higher education. I've had the pleasure of knowing both of them. You know, Dr. Evans, when she was inaugurated, and of course, Juan, my daughter, you know, with an honorary degree. And Dr. McMenamin, she and I have known each other for a long time, even before she came to Union College. And before the program started, you know, we played golf together. She's a terrific athlete. And what she said today is really true, because I've witnessed that on her campus. Because when I went to see her, visit her several years ago, we were in the cafeteria line, and she paid for the lunch for those students who were waiting in line. So she really walked the talk. And so again, thank you very much. It's a wonderful opportunity, and thanks to the church for organizing this so that we can get the larger picture of what is happening in our society. And it's indeed an honor, and I hope the church will continue to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think we're taking care of that buzz. Bob, last word. Last word.
You don't have the last word because you're the pastor here. You give us a parting prayer.
Absolutely will. You're the one saying between me and the word.
All right. I'll be very short. I just want to thank everybody who has made this event possible, including the 3 people sitting up there, and perhaps especially the 2 college presidents who've been on the firing line. They know a little bit about this arcane, this arcane area of work and study. But we and our moderator, who has been very important in helping us. So I want to say, as a member of the congregation, that this lady here is the pastor of, and has came here with a slightly outstanding background as a top student, and where she went to college in Mississippi, and then chosen to go to Carnegie Mellon University to an outstanding program there, and eventually ended up at that strange institution in New York City called it's a seminary, Union Theological Seminary, where they had a few well-known people there at one time or another, including one of the people she studied with, who is now the United States Senator from Georgia, a person of color who was with the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, or MLK. His father was MLK, had a little bit to do with that. But as I say, she's been around. And when our pastor to pastor this church. And we found the stage here. And we're not disappointed. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for making this event, I believe, a great success. And I'm hoping that once you
We so very much appreciate all of these words and from Dr. Rios, Dr. Evans, and Dr. McMenamin. We are so pleased with your work and are grateful for your sharing. And so as we go out today, we're sending you with your blessings, traveling mercies. Did everyone take care of the things for her? Here comes Carol. We appreciate it. We always want to make sure we take care of all the things. But I'm sending you forth just in this blessing that we have had an opportunity to hear what a just society begins to look like. We're at the beginning of this. And what our charge is that we continue to be part of the solution. Part of the solution, not part of the problem. I love your ending of, if we shovel the ramp, everyone has an opportunity to get in. So if we begin to just make those small steps, then we do become part of that solution. So join us as we share in our time of our refreshments and as we share with one another. Blessings to you all, and we thank you.